Hello again, and we're back trying to find a little bit more about some of the award winners for IAIA 24. And I really am delighted today to be joined by some co-recipients of our Corporate Initiative Award. So before I sort of hand over to allow them to introduce themselves, this award is really aimed at trying to identify particular projects which have made a particular important contribution to environmental or impact assessment work, wherever it might be in the world. Now, this one is quite an interesting one, I think, as we delve into the reasons for the award. And this goes to a partnership that's based in Canada that came up with a very innovative way of looking at a highway extension. That is a really crude way of trying to explain it, but to do a much better job, I am joined by George Kakwe and also Soumya Sethi. And really, let me just hand over to you to explain a little bit more about the background to the project and what was involved in this.
Well, first of all, thanks for this interview. And we're always taught by our elders, knowledge keepers, about our sacred relationship to the land. And it's specific in the treaty process. And I think the key is that because of our sacred relationship, we apply our spiritual traditional laws into a process that we've been using in the tuning of the highway. And it's about how we respect the environment, how we are connected to all beings, or all, animals, the water, and the whole world. And so that's what we always taught by our elders, and keeping that in mind. And I think that's a process that we went through and followed throughout the tuning of the highway.
We've sort of broadly termed it this harmonized impact assessment. Does that sort of capture the true essence of it? Can you've said a little bit about more traditional forms of knowledge. How does that come to bear with, what impact assessment might be in areas outside of Canada or elsewhere where there is Indigenous relationships to bear in mind?
One of the key to that internet process is we're guided by the Manitoki Nakunigate, in acronym HAI, which we call Harmonization Impact Assessment, which brings together Anishinaabe knowledge, teachings, and customs and protocol with the best practice of impact assessment. And I think that's the real key to how we move forward. And I think when you talk about the harmonization assessment, as I said, it's traditional knowledge forums, a foundation of the harmonization impact assessment, and is used to identify potential impacts to the land, waters, soils, skies, and guides the monitoring, ongoing care, and protection of the environment. And of course, at its core, traditional knowledge is gathered through respectful and meaningful engagement with elders and knowledge keepers in the community. And this engagement happens through various means, including community presentations, individual interviews, and facilitating group discussions, which a lot of time is guided by our spirituality and how we do ceremonies prior to these discussions and presentations. So in a lot of sense, we're going back pre-Columbian practices and processes, which we never forgot. And today we're still, part of that process. And this law describes the way of living in harmony with Earth. As I said, we're all connected, and this has existed since time immemorial. And so we haven't forgotten who we are as Anishinaabe people. And a lot of times through the process, it's guided by 4 key principles called waiwene. It means taking our time. A lot of times when you talk about industry and government, you got to consider money. You got to consider, we got to start this project sooner than later, because it's really about how they're trying to protect the investors who are the key in taking shortcuts, and how we begin to build major infrastructure projects. And BBK, meaning let's do it right. There's no rush into it. Do it right, you know. And also listening isn't done. These are key principles in this harmonization assessment. We'll listen to your science, but you got to listen to us about traditional knowledge and how we implement through this traditional knowledge and science as harmonization into a process agreed by the two parties. And the other ones get touch can. Let's move forward. Don't be afraid of us. You know, we're not afraid of you. So let's sit down together and say, let's have a good conversation here. We might disagree. We might agree to disagree. Then how do you work agreement on how we disagree to agree? And so let's develop a process how we could come to the table, you know, stare at each other eye to eye, just trying to understand each other. And that's the harmonization impact assessment.
Do you get the sense that, from what I understand, that this particular project, but others I'm sure have been multi-stage. Has it become easier as that's been more recognized, what that process looks like, or is it sort of starting all over again on each project?
Well, the basic process is there. Called Manitoki Nakunigate, the Great Earth Law, we call it. So all the key principles are there. See, and how that process begins to work is how I describe it. But in terms of how you build a relationship, say with Ontario or Canada for that matter, it's that the beginning of that relationship. It's about trust. It's about understanding. It's about accountability and transparency. You know, all these key principles, and honor. And these key principles are the major rolling principles that, you know, in terms of how we begin to discuss. And the last thing you want at the table is lawyers. We don't need lawyers at the table. You know, you're a nation, we're a nation. Why would you need a lawyer? I want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to your lawyer. See? And that's the key principle, is how we begin to do that. Because what we did is we put this table, this Manitoki Nakoni at the table. They did not understand it. They said, trust us. We're not going to, nothing to fool here. Everything is accountable and transparent. If you can't look me in the eye, that means that, you know, there's something wrong with your own personal vision. You know, I think that's the key, is that trust. And once you establish trust, then how do you begin to form a partnership, which is a twinning of the highway? Now we create a partnership. And within that partnership, there's accountability and transparency. And how you begin to, in that process, protect the environment. One of the key principles, we're not only looking after the environment for ourselves. You got to think in long term. Think about your children, your great-grandchildren, and generations to come. Are they going to live in a world of pollution? I don't think that's fair for future generations. But I think that's the key value.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that there's a lot of the members would be nodding heads on that, and they'd certainly be agreeing with you, trying to keep lawyers out of the room. That's for sure. And Somi, how did the relationship, your partnership come about in terms of ending up where we are now?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. So Narrative's role has been in the background, supporting the nations as the nations pursued this path. For my part, I'm very much guided by my ancestors and my ancestral knowledge that comes from Punjab and Kashmir. That's my home. That's where I come from. I'm a guest on Turtle Island. And for Narratives, this journey has been about walking alongside the nations in what the nations are pursuing. So for us, it's been a a deep, deep honor to be able to be invited into a ceremony with the nations to learn from elders and knowledge keepers and law keepers such as George. We still make lots of mistakes as we go along, but we learn from those mistakes. My technical background is in that Western sort of impact assessment realm. So it's been really powerful to see how impact assessment can be done differently, can be done in a manner that really honors Indigenous law, Indigenous custom, Indigenous rituals and practices and approaches. And that is really what lies at the heart of this process. And George talked about some of those principles. And for us, one of the key principles has been the Kikotashkin, the don't be afraid, because that is really where we're pushing the boundaries of impact assessment. So how do we make sure that the process is rooted in a system that is respectful to the First Peoples of the land, that honors their experiences, their knowledge, and their laws? So for us, it's been a really powerful journey, and we're so honored to be a part of it with the nations.
No, look, it's a really great introduction to this. I'm sure it's going to be a new area for many of the members who have not necessarily come across it. But what I love is the tie-in to our conference theme of this just transformation and equity and justice. And to do that, you've got to get people in who are impacted by decisions around the table and represented and having a voice. And I think that struck me the more that I've sort of read about this particular partnership and scheme, just how important that has been. So thank you both for sharing a little bit of what the background to it is. I'm sure we will get follow-ups and questions when people get a chance to understand more about this. But for now, thank you very much, and congratulations on the award.